Wow, okay. On behalf of Channing, I want to welcome you on this beautiful morning and know that we always welcome people of all faiths, colors, sexual orientation, dogs, anybody who wants to come to our services, especially outside, are most welcome. Cats too, I suppose. But we are a welcoming community, and we're so happy when people join us. And let us know if you have any questions or if you want to be more involved in anything. But thank you very much. And here it is, Gayle and Jim. Thank you.
Yay! Thank you, Miriam. All righty. Well, good morning. Good morning. Look at me for a moment. This is how a woman dressed in Newport in the very years that this church right behind us, this beautiful, beautiful church was built. Layers upon layers. A corset you cannot see, though I can certainly feel it. And a voice that in public was really required to stay rather quiet. Now, Jim is going to tell you the grand story this morning. The ministers, the founders, the men who signed declarations and laid cornerstones and blew the top clean off this tower right in back of me. True. Wonderful men, every one. But I have come for the others. The wives in the pews, the sisters at the writing desk, the women who, while the men preached self-reliance from the public, were quietly practicing it with a pen, very often after the whole house had gone to sleep. I have brought a book with me. Keep your eye on it, because the story of the women and the poetry of this age is so often the story of a book that had to be hidden. But first, because it is Jim Egan, and those of you who belong to Channing, like me, know Jim Egan, he is going to get everyone woken up this morning before we proceed. James?
Thank you. Thank you. Cause it's a good day for singing the song, and it's a good day for moving along, and it's a good day. How could anything go wrong? Cause it's a good day from morning to night. Well, it's a good day for shining your shoes, and it's a good day for losing the blues. Nothing to gain and nothing to lose. It's a good day from morning to night. I said to the sun, good morning, sun. Rise and shine today. You know you gotta get it going if you're gonna make a showing, and you've got the right away. Cause it's a good day for paying your bills, and it's a good day for curing your ills, and it's a good day for rapping your rap, and it's a good day for tapping your tap. So take a deep breath and you'll get it right, cause it's a good day from morning to night. Yes, it's a good day from morning to night. It's a good day from morning to night.
Bravo, bravo. Thank God. Oh, and what did you do with my microphone?
I just thought I'd take it for a while.
You did. Well, give it back. There we go. All right. Now, Jim is going to have us take a walk in the 1800s through town, through Newport. But let me set one thing in your minds. In this era, a respectable woman like myself could not vote. In most places, once she married, she could not own property. She could not attend the colleges her brothers attended. She could not speak from a public platform without scandal. The whole wide world was more or less closed to her. But poetry, oh no. Poetry was thought to be ornamental, decorative, harmless. A few lines in a lady's album, a sweet verse in a gift book at Christmas, so they let us have it. And that, my dear friends, was their mistake. Because into that one small permitted space, women poured everything, their minds, their griefs, their politics, their longing, their faith. The little parlor poem became a side door into American literature. And the Transcendentalists, bless them, were about to open that door a good deal wider.
Scouring up some new people from the park, because everybody's welcome today. You're welcome to join us. Yeah, because we're just having nothing but fun. So when you're driving through Washington Square in Newport, and you're going up Touro Street, you'll pass by the Jane Pickens Theater on your right, and then Clark Street, and the next house after that was for many years the Newport Restoration Foundation, and now it's the Cusp Art Gallery. But originally, that was the home of William Ellery, one of the 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence. And yesterday they had a 21-gun salute in front of his house. I don't know if anybody heard. Did you see that yesterday? It was magnificent. Anyways, Rhode Island was actually the first first colony to declare independence from Great Britain. They did it 2 months before everybody else. This is where the revolution started. In 1776, the British didn't like Newporters so much, they invaded this place, and they stayed here for 3 years. They occupied the city. 2/3 of the citizens left town. William Ellery and his family and a group of Newporters moved inland to the safety of Dighton, Massachusetts. The British generals took over the finest houses in Newport, like that White House in the background there. And they burned down the houses next door for firewood. The troops lived in the churches, and they burned the pews for all the firewood. They burned all the trees on the island to keep warm for 3 winters. And when the French and Americans finally chased them out of town, the British had been storing their gunpowder in this tower right here. And they lit it because they didn't want the Americans to get it, and it blew the top off. Boom! After the war in 1788, William Ellery's grandson, William Ellery Channing, was born. There he is today in his youth, his finest youth right here. Now, here's another road map. You're at the Mary Street parking lot, and you come out on Mary Street, you take a right, the Vanderbilt is on your right, then you cross Spring Street, and you're going uphill, you cross Division Street, and the next street is School Street. Well, the blue house with the crisp white trim right in front of you is where William Ellery Channing grew up. On Sundays, he and his father would walk down School Street to Division Street, and then head south on Division Street to Mill Street, and across Mill Street, you'll see now this big white building that's condominiums. It's huge. If you look at it, it's much bigger than a house. And that was the Second Congregational Church where they attended the services. The preacher there was Samuel Hopkins, one of the first pastors ever in America to preach against slavery. Well, young William grew up exploring the boats in Newport Harbor, journeying down to the beaches. But he was a pensive youth, and he wrote that it was on Second Beach where he says he first saw God. And he was so inspired, he attended the Harvard Divinity School, which at the time was all Unitarian. He married his Newport heartthrob, Ruth Gibbs, who grew up in that White House right there. And that's the Gibbs family. They owned this whole lot for a while. And then he became the pastor of the Federal Street Church in Boston. His ideas were embraced by a younger generation of Harvard Divinity students: Ralph Waldo Emerson, Henry David Thoreau, Theodore Parker, James Freeman Clark, and Charles Timothy Brooks. The young group of individuals took Channing's Unitarian ideas a step further towards individualism and self-reliance. They were originally called Transcendentalists as a slur, but they later embraced the name. They held discussion groups and shared stories and poetry in The Dial, which was edited by Ralph Waldo Emerson and Margaret Fuller. Amos Bronson Alcott devised the name The Dial, referring to a sundial that measured time not by mechanical means, as in a watch or a clock, but by nature's sunlight. She gathered in October of 1835, famous woman here, Mrs. Samuel St. John, the wife of a wealthy merchant here in Newport, she said, "You know, Newport needs to have a Unitarian church. They were being spread all around New England. So she gathered together a dozen or so influential Newporters at William Ellery's house, who we know where that is, on Washington Square. And they purchased Reverend Samuel Hopkins Congregational Church on Mill Street, which was going on hard times. They hired Harvard-educated Transcendentalist Charles Timothy Brooks in 1837, and he remained the pastor for the next 34 years until 1871. At Harvard, Brooks had learned German, and he translated the works of the great German romanticists at the time. Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, Friedrich Schiller, Friedrich Schelling, and he made their humanist ideas available to all the Transcendentalists across New England and America. Before he died in 1842, William Ellery Channing summered in Middletown, Rhode Island, and he was often a guest speech preacher at the Charles Timothy Brooks for Charles Timothy Brooks on Mill Street at the Mill Street Unitarian Church. And I just learned the other day that the podium which he preached in front of is the podium we use today, not the one on the stage, but the one that's on the ground. But here's a sample of William Ellery's poem. It's poetry. It's entitled My Symphony. To live content with small means, to seek elegance rather than luxury, and refinement rather than fashion, to be worthy, not respectable, to be wealthy, not rich, to study hard, think quietly, act gently, act frankly, to listen to stars, birds, babes, and sages with open heart, to bear all cheerfully, do all bravely, await occasions, hurry never. In a word, to let the spiritual, unbidden and unconscious grow up through the common. This is to be my symphony.
Much better. A moment ago, you heard a name, and my pal James, he just slid right past it. Margaret Fuller. I want to stop here for a moment, because Margaret Fuller, she was the mind of the whole Transcendentalist movement. She was born in 1810, right up the coast in Cambridge. Her father had no son to educate, so he educated her instead, relentlessly. Latin at 6, Greek soon after. She grew up able to outread and out-argue any man in the room, which I promise you did not make her popular. She was barred from Harvard, as were all women, so she talked her way into its library, and she became the first woman ever allowed through those doors. And when she could not attend the university, she simply built her own. Right here in our own state, in fact. For 2 years, she taught up the bay in Providence at the Green Street School. And then, my dear friends, she did something extraordinary. She gathered the educated women of Boston into her parlor, and she held what she called conversations, not gossip, philosophy, mythology, ethics, and she charged admission. And for the first time, grown women sat in a room and were asked out loud, "What do you think?" Many of them said afterwards that it changed their lives. And when Emerson and his circle launched the journal that Jim mentioned, The Dial, it was Margaret Fuller that they named the first editor. Not an assistant, not an editor. In 1845, she wrote a book called Women in the 19th Century, the first great argument for the equality of women ever written in this country. The first, by her.
That's cool, sister.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Now, her ending is the sort of thing you might call a melodrama, if only it were not true. But she went to Italy. She fell in love with a young and penniless nobleman named Ossoli. She had a child. She lived through a revolution, running a hospital while the cannons fired around her. and then sailing home to America with her husband and her baby boy, their ship ran aground in a storm right off Fire Island in New York, 100 yards from shore. Everyone on the beach could see them. She would not leave her child, and all three of them drowned. An interesting side note that my historian here told me that it was the poet Emerson who Emerson paid Thoreau to go to Fire Island to find her papers. He thought if he searched, among the shipwreck, he would find some. Did he, James?
No.
No. And her body was never found. Right, neither was the manuscript she believed was her finest work. And so the men who had loved her gathered what was left of her papers, and they wrote her memoirs, and they edited her. They softened her. They made her even gentler and smaller and more ladylike than she had ever once been in life. Even in death, they could not let her be as large as she truly was. And she's buried in a beautiful rural cemetery in Mount Auburn, which is in Boston, Jim? Cambridge. Her family carved these words: born a child of New England, by adoption a citizen of Rome, by genius belonging to the world. And Margaret was not alone. There was Ellen Sturgis Hooper, a poet of the Dial. She died at 36, but she wrote 6 small lines that may have outlived almost everything the men around her ever published. You may know them without ever knowing her name. I slept and dreamed that life was beauty. I woke and found that life was duty. Was thy dream then a shadowy lie? Toil on, sad heart, courageously, and thou shalt find thy dream to be a noonday light and truth to see. Ellen Sturgis Hooper in the Dial in 1840. Beauty and duty, the whole tug of a woman's life in that age, caught in 3 little rhymes.
In 1878, Newport was prospering. Steamboats connected it to Manhattan. The Unitarian Church on Mill Street had outgrown its building. Charles Timothy Brooks led the mission to build a new church to honor the 100th anniversary of William Ellery Channering's birth in 1780. That's why we see carved on the front, 1780 to 1880. He solicited funds from churches and donors all across New England, then all across America, then all across Europe. They all wanted to celebrate William Ellery Channing, who was called the saint of the Unitarian religion, or the founder even. The finest church designer in New England, Elbridge Boyden of Worcester, who was himself a devout Unitarian, donated the plans for the church. In the mid-1800s, the Newport Tower, this beautiful building behind us here, was the main attraction in town. All the mansions were private houses, and many of them hadn't even been built yet. Where the Elks Club is now was once the Atlantic House Hotel with 6 tall Ionic columns out front. And it could accommodate 250 guests. People came on the steamboats up Mill Street. That's where they ended at Bowen's Wharf. They walk up Mill Street, and first thing they'd see this tower, and then there was another. The Ocean House was just down the street. That had 300 rooms. That's where Stop and Shop Plaza is now. So this is where people came from all over, and they came to see this tower. Charles Timothy Brooks loved the tower and even wrote a book about it. Brooks arranged to buy the Victorian cottage that was just south of the park, owned by Mrs. Louisa Derby. It was right there where the church is now. They picked it up, moved it to the back of the lot, and now it's our parish house. A beautiful Victorian building. Here's part of Brooks's poem that he wrote for the laying of the cornerstone, which is in the northwest corner of the building. You can still see it today if you go through that little gate. This cornerstone, in faith, hope, and love, we lay. and for God's pure blessing, pray. Rise, hallowed walls, look forth over land and sea, and welcome all to peace and liberty. From thy rock base, amid almighty power, lift high the well-knit frame, the majestic tower. William Clark Noble, a couple of decades later, created this sculpture, 1893, for William Ellery Channing, and they loved him so much in Boston they made a similar statue. We have a picture of the similar statue. Yeah, in the Boston Common, right in Boston. You see, the Federal Street Church closed because that's where all the it's the financial district now. All those huge buildings in Boston, that's where Federal Street was. And then they moved further out of the Back Bay. They built a beautiful called the Arlington Street Church on the corner of Boylston and Arlington Street. And so they wanted to commemorate Channing, but they couldn't put a religious figure in a public park. So they actually cut out a small corner of the park that is outside of the park. They built a fence around it. It's in front of the Arlington Street Church, and they raised this statue for they saw the statue. Yeah. So it's similar to this one. It is slightly different. Hey, you're welcome to come and listen. We're having a great talk about Unitarianism and the history of Newport. And it's absolutely free. In fact, we'll pay you to come. Well, the Channing Memorial Church was finally finished in 1880. And if you go in the church today, up on the first row is a metal plaque that commemorates one very famous member of the congregation. Anyone know who this is?
Julia Ward Howe.
Yeah! We're talking to the right people.
I'm telling you. We know our audience. What was Julia known for? Something very famous. What did she write?
Battle Hymn of the Republic.
She did write the Battle Hymn of the Republic that she is most known for. And she was a very faithful member of Channing Church. And she would sit in the first pew. She always sat in the first row. And of course, everyone knew her for that writing. But there's a lot more to our friend Julia. As I said, she sat in the pew right in the front, and she was a very small, white-haired woman with sharp and lively eyes. And the whole country knew her as the author of the Battle Hymn of the Republic, so they were very proud of that. And I think, Jim, maybe we should sing in homage. A little homage to Julia. Should we sing?
Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. He is everybody trampling out the vintage where the grapes of wrath are stored. She has loosed the fateful lightning of his terrible swift sword. His truth is marching on.
That's
Everybody.
Good. I think glory.
Hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His truth is marching on.
We didn't tell you about the interactive part, the sing-along part. Anyway, our friend Julia, she published. Oh man, did she publish. And she kept on writing for the next 50 years. She founded a suffrage newspaper. She preached from the pulpit. She became the first woman ever elected to the American Academy of Arts and Letters. And fittingly, she wrote the life story of another woman we met just a moment ago, Margaret Fuller. Now, these women were holding the ladder for one another. We sang a little bit of her most famous work, but she also wrote From a Quieter Place. And she wrote a poem that is often very quoted. It's called, a book she wrote called Passion Flowers. The secret of man's life disclosed would cause him strange confusion. Should God the cloud of fear remove, or veil of sweet illusion? And that was from 1853, Julia Ward Howe. She rests now in Cambridge, at Mount Auburn, among the great men of the letters, which means she does not lie here on the island that she loved so well. None of them do, actually. Julia died at Oak Glen, but they carried her home to Massachusetts. Margaret Fuller has only an empty stone because the sea kept her. And these women, they lived here, they wrote here. They loved this island and this bay. And then the wider world claimed them and took them elsewhere. Perhaps we are the ones left behind to remember that they were even here at all.
Just around the corner is the Redwood Library. It had been built in 1750, and at its 100th anniversary in 1850, Charles Timothy Brooks was asked to write a poem and read it aloud that he had written about this lovely island and the Newport Tower in the background. Here are some excerpts. Aquidneck, it still speaks to fancy's eye, thy noble charms of sea and shore and sky. The bold, bald rock that juts out into the surge, the bold green bank that hangs over ocean's verge, the spray-wreathed headlands stretching towards the deep, the clouds that on thy far horizon sleep, and all the beauty, majesty, and grace thou hast of nature's changeful yet changeless face. Hail, pleasant isle, as freshly shine today the sky, the beach, the breaker, and the bay. We have our history too, a past, and these have become our ancestral memories. We need not seek elsewhere in foreign climes for memorials of the early twilight times. Speak, thou stone mystery that overtops the hill, fort, baptistry, monument, or mill, which or what art thou? Say! And is there then no faithful historian's fact-compelling pen to let men know both whence and what thou art? And to finally set at rest the antiquarian's heart. How long hath time held on his mighty march, since first arose thy time-defying arch? Did the astonished Indian gaze on thee, a mystery staring at a mystery, a son of Canaan, rather shall we say, viewing the work of brethren passed away? Was it Phoenician, Norman, or Saxon toil that sunk thy rock-based pillars in the soil? How looked the bay, the forest, and the hill when the sun first beheld thy walls, old mill? 4 years later, the Gibbs family, who owned this property, and this was an apple orchard, decided to sell it. They divided this area up into 8 lots, and then they had 8 businesses lots on Bellevue Avenue. The people of Newport, they were going to take down the tower. The people of Newport were distraught. They said, no, you're not going to take that down. Judah Touro donated $15,000, and 29 other citizens whose names are listed on that plaque in the middle of the park right there donated money. They purchased it and deeded the land to the city and the tower to the city of Newport for forever. Calvert Vaux, the most famous landscape designer in America, who later designed Central Park in Manhattan, made this a promenading park. It was an artful design that he came up with, a maze of serpentine walkways forming 23 separate islands of grass and plantings. This particular curved arch right here that you'll see is part of the original plan. But you see, in 1900, things changed. We were industrialists, and we were in the industrial age. We wanted to get from that place to that place, and that place to that place. We made a giant X out of it, and they got rid of all this promenading park. But I've done research on this Newport Tower, and we hired a firm to do what they call a ground penetrating radar of the whole area of the park. And when they got it back, they could see what was at the depths at 1 foot, 2 foot, 3 foot, 4 foot. And at 1 foot down, they discovered the serpentine walkways are still there. In 1900, they brought in a foot of dirt, covered everything over so they could do some landscaping with fresh dirt. And these beautiful walkways that are as beautiful as a Van Gogh painting are still underneath the ground, and nobody knows about it. But anyways, they're still underneath the ground. But now, we want to switch gears here and talk about another famous Transcendentalist woman.
I love talking about this woman because she was odd and strange. My favorite kind of people. No wonder Jim and I have partnered.
Hey.
Hey. So if you like your poets a little strange, I'll give you one of Rhode Island's own. Up in Providence, there lived a woman named Sarah Helen Whitman. And by every account, she was the leading poet of our whole state. She was also a transcendentalist, and far more thrillingly, she was a spiritualist. She dressed in flowing black. She wore a little coffin-shaped charm at her throat. She held seances on Sunday evenings to speak with the dead. And when her weak heart troubled her, she would breathe either from a silk handkerchief, and she'd just drift away. Now, she had married a writer, John Whitman, an editor, and that marriage is how her poems first found their way into print, under his roof and under his, the gentle cover of his magazine. And that is what happens so often, is how it worked for a woman. You slipped into literature on a husband's pass. And when he died young, she went home to Providence, and she became the queen of literary life. And then Edgar Allan Poe came courting. Oh, that Poe. Is he showing you? This guy he was hot. And he glimpsed her one evening, standing in her rose garden in the moonlight, and he was undone. He wrote one of his poems called To Helen, and they exchanged letters, and they fell into a feverish and doomed romance. He proposed to her in a graveyard, which for these two was practically a garden of roses. She accepted on one condition, that he give up drinking. He could not keep his promise. And on the very week of the wedding, in the reading room of the Providence Athenaeum on Benefit Street, a note was slipped into her hand telling her that he had broken his word. She called the whole thing off. She went home, she soaked her handkerchief in ether and fainted on the sofa as he pleaded at her side. She outlived him by nearly 30 years. Must have been the ether, right? And when the world turned on Poe after his death and dragged his name through mud, it was Sarah Helen Whitman, this woman in black, who stood up and wrote an entire book in his defense. The men had buried his reputation. A woman dug it back up. And I want to leave you with one last name, the quietest of all. While Margaret thundered and Julia marched and Helen held seances, far away in Amherst, there lived a woman named Emily Dickinson, who almost never left her room. She wrote nearly 1,800 poems. In her whole lifetime, fewer than a dozen of them were published, mostly without her name, and several without her permission, and every one tidied up by editors who were certain her strange punctuation must be a mistake. She kept the rest in a drawer, sewn into little handmade booklets, and they were found only after she had died. Today, we call her one of the greatest poets of our century, our history. So when you ask me, how did these women get their work known? The honest answer is barely, anonymously, under a husband's name or a single first name or no name at all, in gift books and ladies' albums and the back pages of newspapers, in secret like Julia, in a locked drawer like Emily. They wrote into a world that had decided in advance not to listen. And yet somehow, across 150 years and more, here we are this morning, listening.
You know, listening to these beautiful stories about the Transcendentalist women, I could feel like I almost smelled them. Do you smell that fragrance? Right? I'm like, they all of a sudden came out. This is actually these trees here. That is a linden tree. And there's another one, it's a linden tree here. And it blossoms for only about a week and a half every year and makes this beautiful fragrance. And this is the time. This is the very beginning of this month. So if you come here at night, they're actually a little more fragrant because this type of tree, like petunias, put out more scent at night. I mean, like 4 or 5 times as much scent. Anyone can tell me the reason why they want to smell at night? Well, it's a smart plant. It evolved to attract the night flying moths. And so the moths will, and she's like, nobody thought about the moths. Let's use those guys. Anyways, when that fragrance comes wafting over here, I think that it's the Transcendentalist women like Gayle. Now, in 1852, we're talking the middle of the 1800s here, John Ross Dix, D-I-X, wrote a book called The Handbook for Newport. He came here and he's like, all these visitors, there's no visitor's guidebook. So he wrote the first one. He started right here in Touro Park at the tower, wrote a little bit about it, and then he walked down Bellevue Avenue to Memorial Avenue, and that's where it ended. The Bellevue didn't continue. They hadn't even made that yet. So he took a right on Memorial, went down to Spring Street, and then he walked out Spring Street to Coggleshell Avenue, all the way to Ledge Road, where he talked about the fishing shacks there. And then he came back again, and as he went along his way, he described everything that he saw, the orchard from Mr. Morrison and the building and all of this. And when he returned back to here again, his starting point, he wrote a poem about the old stone tower. Upon the time-worn cliffs in splendor is evening's fading rosy beam. And whilst 10,000 stars attend to her, the moon ascends over town and stream. On the dim grass, the shadow falls of this old tower's mysterious walls, as if it were some sundial vast to chronicle the ages past. We trace a planet's radiant course, and we can tell when the comet shall return. We measure the wind's resistless force and nature's mighty secrets learn. Yet vain in our toil when we begin, old tower, to trace thy origin. As thou art, and thou long shall be, a marvel and a mystery.
My final words to you.
Clutch these ladies' poems to my heart. I clutch their lives to my heart. They were the early feminists, for sure. And so before Jim sends us home, let me offer just one last word. As one woman, speaking for all the women who were not in their own time allowed to give one. To Margaret, who was always too large for the small room that they gave her. To Julia, who wrote her truest self in secret and then published it anyway. To Helen, who loved the difficult ones and defended them to the end. To Ellen and to Emily and to every woman whose name we have lost, the ones in the gift books, the ones in the drawers, the ones who signed their work simply a lady or signed it nothing at all. You toiled on, sad hearts, courageously, and your dream has become for us a noonday light. So read a woman's poem this week, speak a forgotten name aloud, keep the side door open behind you, and if there is a young woman here this morning, or a young woman that you know with a book half hidden in her shawl, let her know that here in this church, in this good light, in this good air, we are ready and glad to hear her.
Wow, what a morning! We began in the shadow of this mystery tower, and we ended up surrounded by people nobody should ever forget. The ministers who dreamed up this church, and the women who filled it with their poetry. Chanting asks us to listen to the stars and birds and babes and sages with an open heart. Margaret and Julia and Helen and all their sisters ask only that we listen to them too. And this morning, we finally did. So let's all go out now to this beautiful island day, read a poem, sing a little too loud. And remember, the men and women of the great American Renaissance of the 1800s are the people who helped build our church and our culture that we live in today. Now let's end with a happy song. This was sung in 1958 by the Boston-based band The Jamies. I'll sing the verses, and you sing the easy refrain. It's only one word, you can't mess it up, but there's 3 voices in it. We start with the low voice. It's summertime, summertime, summertime. Then go to a medium voice. It's summertime, summertime, summertime. Then a high voice. It's summertime, summertime, summertime. Then higher. It's summertime. So you might want to start a little low. Everyone can do all the parts. I know you can do it, and you can just give us your best low voice, and then I'll start singing. So let's start with the low voice. It's summertime, 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 louder. Summertime, 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 summertime. Whoa. Well, shut your books, throw them away. Say goodbye to dull school days. So come along and change your ways. It's summertime. Boom, boom. It's time to head straight for the hills. It's time to live and have some thrills. So come along and have a ball. A regular free for all. Boom, boom, boom. It's summertime, 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 summertime. Boom, boom. Oh, I'm so happy I could flip. How I'd love to take a trip. Sorry, teacher, zip your lip, 'cause it's summertime. Ba-boom. We'll go swimming every day. No time for work, just play, play, play. And if your folks complain, we'll just say it's summertime. Ba-boom, boom. It's summertime, 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 summertime. Ba-boom, boom, boom. Bless you all. Stay cool, everyone. Now, be like calculators. Go forth and multiply.
Special shout out to Tim Phelps who roped us in. And